Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever felt like you've got these absolutely massive ambitions, but when it comes down to it, you just can't seem to find the energy to actually start? Well, you're definitely not alone, so let's dive right into this. Today, we're completely dismantling the massive modern myth that motivation has to come before action. We're going to flip your perspective by unlocking some ancient samurai wisdom, focusing specifically on the Kaizen method to success. If you consider yourself an ambitious person, but you find yourself constantly battling with laziness or procrastination, the historical principles we're about to unpack are literally going to be a game changer for you.
So why do our grandest ambitions often lead to our greatest regrets? It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? We tend to think that dreaming big is the ultimate key to a successful life. We just assume that if a goal is grand enough, the energy to achieve it will, magically appear out of thin air. But history, and human psychology for that matter, tells a very different story. To really understand why this happens, we need to take a look back in time.
Section 1. The Trap of Ambition. We're going to start by exploring a very specific psychological trap. And this is one that's been catching people for centuries, way before our modern distractions even existed. Once upon a time in feudal Japan, there lived a young samurai named Yuki. Yuki is going to be our case study for today. Now, he dreamed of becoming the absolute greatest warrior in the land. He spent hours upon hours reading stories of famous battles, absorbing advanced strategies, and just deeply visualizing himself winning these epic victories to earn honor for his clan. Yuki firmly believed that simply having this intense, burning ambition would naturally push him toward greatness.
So Yuki's mind was totally filled with these massive ambitions, mastering weapons, winning epic battles, earning immense honor. But his actual reality? Well, it painted a stark contrast. When the time actually came to step outside and train, Yuki always found an excuse. He'd tell himself, the weather was just a little too cool today, or too rainy, or maybe he was feeling slightly under the weather, or that he needed to sit down and meticulously plan out his entire training routine before even picking up a sword. He was just constantly waiting for the absolute perfect conditions.
And because of that, Yuki's ambition without action left him frustrated, totally unprepared, and full of regret. Years went by like this. His dreams just kept growing larger and more complex in his head, but his physical skills stayed entirely stagnant. And the real tragedy here is that younger, way less ambitious warriors who simply trained every single day quickly surpassed him. Yuki eventually had to face a brutal truth. His grand dreams hadn't lifted him higher at all. They had actually made him weaker.
Section 2. The Illusion of Preparation.
Now, Yuki wasn't just lazy. He was a victim of human nature, falling into what we call the dreamer's trap. His very identity as a dreamer created this massive gap between what he wanted and what he was actually willing to do. And here's the fascinating psychological glitch that happens. When we constantly talk about our plans, we actually trick our own minds. Our brain literally rewards us with a sense of accomplishment just for talking about the goal. It treats the conversation as if it were the actual work. Imagining this glorious future just became a super comfortable place for Yuki to hide, allowing him to avoid the harsh, boring discomfort of daily practice. Plus, because his goals were so grand, they felt overwhelmingly distant, which made it incredibly easy to delay the small, mundane steps he needed to take today.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Preparation without practice is simply disguised procrastination. We love to tell ourselves that planning, researching, and talking are forms of progress, but in reality, we're just drifting further and further away from the actual work that matters. Dreams without action quietly waste time, and as the samurai deeply understood, time once lost can never ever be reclaimed. Section 3. Musashi's Daily Discipline.
Okay, so if Yuki represents the trap, who exactly represents the way out? Well, that would be Miyamoto Musashi, who built greatness through the quiet rhythm of repetition, not sudden bursts of inspiration. Centuries ago, this legendary swordsman completely grasped the truth that Yuki completely missed. Musashi didn't try to transform his life in some single dramatic moment of motivation. He rejected that idea entirely. Instead, he devoted his entire existence to small, steady actions performed every single day. The samurai were obviously known for their dramatic battles, but their actual true strength came from the incredibly humble, unglamorous discipline of daily practice.
Consider the exact difference in their approaches. The dreamer waits for the perfect weather before even stepping out the door. The master, however, walks even in the freezing rain to ensure they reach their destination. The source material makes this point so beautifully. Waiting for motivation to begin is exactly like waiting for perfect weather to start a long journey. You might end up waiting forever, while the people who are willing to just put their heads down and walk in the rain will reach the destination long before you even leave your house.
They trained not when they felt perfectly ready, but because training was simply their way of life.
Section 4. The Way of Kaizen.
Now we're going to shift to the core, actionable philosophy that actually cures this problem of laziness and overwhelming ambition. Kaizen no Mi. It's the samurai way of small, steady improvements. The principle that a massive mountain is climbed literally one step at a time. They didn't climb the mountain by standing at the bottom, staring up at the peak, and just wishing they were up there. They understood that even if the steps seem laughably small, they inevitably lead to massive strength because they are repeated. Even if the progress seems agonizingly slow at first, it eventually builds into complete mastery simply because it does not stop.
Let's imagine how this builds in practice. Picture a samurai student who actually feels way too lazy to train. He has absolutely zero motivation. Yet, he commits to step 1, practicing just a single simple sword form every morning. His friends mock him, right? Laughing at this tiny, seemingly useless effort. But he just ignores them and continues. This naturally leads to step 2. The movement becomes entirely automatic. Without him even really realizing it, he hits step 3. His body grows stronger, his technique sharpens, and his inner discipline deepens. Months later, he arrives at step 4. He realizes he's built a profound foundation that allows him to learn incredibly advanced skills with total ease. Meanwhile, his friends who just waited around to feel motivated are still stuck at the very beginning. The smallest step, repeated daily, carries so much more power than the grandest plan left sitting on paper.
Section 5. Action before motivation.
And this brings us to the real climax of our explainer today, and it demands a complete paradigm shift from us. We normally think that motivation causes action, right? But the samurai knew that motivation is not the spark that creates action. Actually, scratch that. It's the total opposite. Action is the spark. Motivation is just the fleeting flame that follows the action. Action brings momentum, and that momentum creates the energy that we're constantly mistaking for inspiration. The people who achieve the most in life aren't the ones who wake up feeling magically inspired every day. They're the ones who act even when they feel absolutely zero desire to do so.
Yagyu Munenori, one of the greatest samurai teachers, famously noted, "The sword that waits for perfect conditions never leaves its sheath." I really want to let that sink in for a moment. If you wait for the right moment, you may literally wait forever. Waiting for motivation is really nothing more than handing total control of your future over to your current temporary emotions.
So why do we wait? The roots of this resistance usually just come down to fear. We fear the discomfort of starting a task when we already feel tired. We fear the resistance of continuing when our energy is low. We fear that our efforts aren't going to feel instantly rewarding, so, well, we just don't start. We completely buy into the illusion that we must feel ready to act. But true discipline isn't about avoiding these negative feelings. It's about moving straight through them. True strength is not the ability to act when conditions are perfect, for sure not. It's the ability to act when conditions are terrible. The ultimate takeaway of these warriors was this simple, powerful idea. I am not controlled by my feelings, I am guided by my commitments. True strength doesn't mean saying, hey, I feel like doing this today. True strength means saying, I will do this, whether I feel like it or not. You cannot place your trust in your emotions, because feelings are fleeting and completely unreliable. You have to place your trust in your habits and your commitments, because those are the rock-solid foundation of all human achievement. Which brings us to our final thought. Will you keep waiting for readiness, or will you choose to shape your life today through small daily commitments? The power to act without waiting for motivation is the exact power you need to shape your future. So stop waiting for the perfect weather. Step out into the rain. Take one incredibly small step today and just let the momentum build.